Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network. Katie Krimer joining us here. Excited to have her back with us. She's live on Zoom as well as here on the podcast. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. Thank you. It's a little hot, but I'm hanging in there. How are you?
I'm good. Where are you based out of?
I'm in the Hudson Valley, but I work mainly in New York City and do some bi-coastal work as well. So
Perfect. And let's introduce yourself. You are a self-growth and mental wellness coach and founder of your own company called Growspace. There's a little bit. So tell us exactly what it is that you do.
Sure. Yeah. So I'm a therapist by training, and I started a company called Growspace when I wanted to work with people who had already done really important self-growth work on themselves, or had processed trauma, or had gone through some of the basics, acquiring some of the tools necessary to kind of get to a place where coaching is the right fit. So I get to do a lot of creative work with people. So I get to be a lot more hands-on. I get to go to people's workplaces. I get to sometimes help people, make really fun decisions, sometimes less fun decisions. So really, it's kind of a therapeutically informed, like cheerleading, psychological support system is the way that I think about it. So kind of anything that, someone might need in order to feel more fulfilled in their life, be more motivated. That's kind of where I get involved. With some people, I see them just on a session by session basis, and some people require a little bit more in between session support. So I really try to curate and tailor my services so that I can really get to know that person, and over time get to know what works for them, what keeps them motivated, and kind of adjust and go from there. So that's Growspace.
Perfect. Well, we're excited to have you here. And I know today our topic is going to be about self-compassion. And what exactly is that? Let's start with identifying what that really means.
Yeah, that sounds good. So whenever I talk to people about self-compassion, there's a lot of myths around it, a lot of misnomers, because there are a lot of self-dash words like self-esteem, self-worth. So sometimes they get a little bit confounded. So I first like to define compassion in the context of empathy and compassion, because those sometimes get mixed up as well. So empathy is when we're really putting ourselves in someone's shoes. We are feeling their pain. Usually empathy is when we can genuinely resonate with something that someone is going through, either if we've gone through the same thing or if we've experienced some of the same emotions, even if they come from a different experience. So empathy really involves a lot of, like, I think of it as like being a bit like down in the dirt with clients or with people. You're really often taking on a little bit or a lot sometimes of that emotional pain or suffering. Compassion is really awesome because you get all of that good stuff from empathy, but you don't get the exhaustion or sometimes that burnout or what they call compassion fatigue, but I like to define as empathy fatigue. So compassion is when you can recognize suffering in another person. And not only can you recognize it, you feel moved to alleviate it in some way, or you have kind of a goodwill kind of energy that you send towards someone that says, I really wish you weren't suffering. So it's really an acknowledgement without that getting down in the muck of it. So you can still have a bit more of an objective kind of space, but still be there for a person. So it really, and I like to teach people how to shift from empathy to compassion, which is a whole, separate topic. So self-compassion is kind of what it sounds like, which is turning that inward. Excuse me. So self-compassion, actually mindful self-compassion was developed by Drs. Christopher Germer and Dr. Kristen Neff, who are amazing psychologists. And basically they took mindfulness, which is the awareness of the present moment, non-judgmentally. So it's really just the act of paying attention. And then they took self-compassion, which is noticing when you're suffering and offering yourself that same goodwill, offering yourself the wish to alleviate that suffering. So all it really means is I'm a human being. I'm experiencing some kind of discomfort or pain. By virtue of being a human, I deserve this compassion that I'm offering myself. And I'm going to send that energy inward so that I can alleviate some of that suffering and take whatever those next steps are. And we can break down mindful self-compassion into a few kind of sections, but that's the general idea. It's being kind to yourself. It's being mindful of your emotional and thought experience. So not judging that experience within you. And it's also understanding that we are all a part of a common humanity where we all suffer and we all deserve to offer that to ourselves. So that's it in a nutshell.
I love it. I love it. I love it. That's a big nutshell.
Yes.
And some people get a little bit confused though with this, right? I know you were mentioning in the notes because, people think differently, but what exactly do they get wrong specifically? Could you point that out?
Sure. So a lot of the struggles that, or the barriers that come up when I work with folks and I start talking to them about the powers of self-compassion is that there's a fear that if you're kind to yourself, especially when you make a mistake, especially when you're being kind to yourself about a flaw that you might have, that you will actually become really indulgent in whatever it is that you are acknowledging you have suffering in. So for example, let's say that you haven't been consistent with going to the gym, but you're really quite unkind to yourself about it. Every time you don't go, you give yourself time, right? I mean, we've all
guilty.
Been there. Yep, feeling guilty. Oh, I ate all this stuff. I should go to the gym. Oh my gosh, my friends go, I don't go. So all this negative self-talk, which is what we talked about last week, Jill. And a lot of folks think that when you practice self-compassion, you are basically giving in or giving up or justifying, excusing, or indulging or self-pitying. And that could not be more wrong.
Okay, good.
Actually, self-compassion, when you practice it, it results in the most motivation. It results in the least amount of self-pity because you don't get stuck in these cycles of shame and paralysis that we often get stuck in when we are consistently using that negative self-talk, right? So what I really, really, really want people to know is if anyone is trying to teach you self-compassion, including yourself, if you're trying to teach yourself, you have to trust the process. So if you follow kind of the steps of practicing, which I can go over next, you will actually see an alleviation of that nervous system arousal, right? So our fight, flight, freeze, or fold, or fawn. I know there's some extra ones we throw in there now. It's very long, but
yeah, I never heard of those, by the way. That's
I know that could be our next conversation. We'll cover all the F's. So basically, when our nervous system, when we talk shit to ourselves, as we talked about last week, our nervous system becomes dysregulated. It says, oh my gosh, there's some kind of threat. When there's a threat, instead of down-regulating, so calming ourselves with something like self-compassion, self-soothing, self-care of some kind, we could talk more about that as well, you will actually down-regulate your nervous system, thereby making it more likely you free up the cognitive load to actually address some of those habits that you're wanting to build. When you are kind to yourself, when you're self-compassionate, here's the big piece, you're motivating yourself out of loving yourself and caring for yourself. When you don't motivate with self-compassion and self-pity, self-indulgence, knocking on your self-worth, all of those things, you're actually creating a hyper arousal in the nervous system. And when you do that, that's when we get those fight, flight, paralysis, etc. And we're actually motivating out of sometimes self-hatred, sometimes self-dislike, sometimes, societal pressure, basically anything other than we want to do good for ourselves. So we're going to do whatever that habit building is. So I just want folks to know that I promise you, if you commit to practicing it, you will actually see all those things that you've been hard on yourself for, they will start coming into fruition. So it really genuinely is like kind of a magical practice.
Oh gosh. And you think self-care, and what do people do? They cringe, right?
Yes. I mean, nowadays, obviously self-care is like this, right? This, you're laughing because it's like, oh, you have to practice self-care. You have to do yoga, the gym, which are all amazing things. Definitely no judgments there. Drink water. I think those are the three main ones. If you go and you Google self-care, self-compassion, I would argue, is the most epic form of self-care. And self-compassion is not easy to practice. We often think that self-care is doing things that are easy and simple for ourselves so that we can rest, our bodies can rest, our minds can rest. Absolutely. That is 100% a part of what we do when we take care of ourselves. But what we also do to take care of ourselves actually is a lot of self-awareness, becoming, non-judgmental of ourselves, which turns out is really hard for people.
Yeah.
That's an act of self-care, right? So doing that really hard, courageous thing to be vulnerable enough to be able to look inward and say, I'm suffering. My old habits and old mind, we sometimes call monkey mind, lizard mind, like caveman mind, cavewoman mind. Um, that part wants to indulge in old habits that keep us stuck. And what self-compassion as a form of self-care, if you're vulnerable enough to look inwards and say, oh, I just want to just stay in bed today.
Yep.
I really don't want to get up and do that creative project I've been wanting to do. Meeting that moment with non-judgment, meeting that moment with mindfulness. So just observing that, yeah, that arises within you. And that is suffering. So I describe suffering really as anything that causes a sense of discomfort in us, anything that kind of arouses our nervous system. And so in this case, when we think of self-care, I don't want people to cringe. I want them to expand their kind of knowledge base about what self-care can look like, so that it doesn't have to be cringy. So we can do things like, in mindful self-compassion, we can put our hands on our heart, which, trust me, so many of my clients looked at me like this. And they're like, Katie, I don't do that warm and fuzzy shit. And I promise you, in 3 months, I have clients who are just sitting through the whole session talking about difficult stuff. And they've got their hand on, over their heart, which activates the care system, which soothes the nervous system. It's so simple. It is just the notion of touch and how touch functions for our bodies. But people cringe, people get a little weird about it. But self-care can be this simple. So there's no need to cringe, people. Let's just embrace it. And I promise you, once you get over the hump of the cringe, it's the coolest thing ever.
Oh my gosh, this is amazing work you're doing. Now, do you want to talk more about the components in a sense to practicing mindful self-compassion and who's that founded by, and explain how that goes? Thank you.
That sounds good. Of course. So again, Dr. Christopher Germer and Dr. Kristen Neff, they're amazing psychologists. Dr. Christopher Germer was kind enough to write a little blurb for the self-compassion workbook we talked about last week for teens that I wrote. And everything is really based off of my own experiences with teaching, what comes intuitively to me, and from their model of mindful self-compassion. So to break it down, we have kind of 3 countering elements. So we have self-kindness that we practice over self-judgment, right? So most of us tend towards self-judgment. Our practice would be to lean in towards self-kindness. The second bit here is, and a couple of these will take a moment to explain because they've all kinds of fun psych jargon. There is mindfulness versus over-identification, which I'll explain in a moment. And then there's common humanity versus isolation. So self-kindness, pretty self-explanatory, using kind language toward yourself, dropping all that shit talking that we do, that I talk about in my book. And self-judgment is, we're all very familiar with it. I suck, I'm not worthy, I'm not good enough, I'm lazy, I'm fat, I'm not a good boyfriend, I'm not a good boyfriend, I'm not a good parent, etc. Right? So when we practice self-compassion, the idea is that when self-judgment does come up, our goal ultimately is to recognize that we are trying to build ourselves up. We're trying to make ourselves feel better when we're in pain. When we think that we're being a bad parent, or we think we're being a bad partner, that's actually a moment to be kind to ourselves so that we can then hold ourselves accountable, not be guilty or get stuck in a cycle of shame. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
Okay. So, and again, I mean, I could talk about this stuff forever. So, and it takes a long time to teach people even to be like kind to themselves, right? Is that the craving or the comfort level, the familiarity with the judgment, and the belief that judgment is what will get us to change. The belief is that if I like get hard enough on myself, I'm gonna do the things. But guess what? It literally, I'd say 9.9 out of 10 times, it doesn't work. When you motivate yourself with shame or self-judgment, right? So shame isolates us from people. And we'll talk about that in the next component. When you try to motivate yourself with shame, we either do not have lasting habit change, this is what science shows, or if you have some change, it will come with some serious, pretty like gnarly sometimes consequences, like an evisceration of your self-worth, really low self-esteem, difficulty in relationships, etc. Because you're viewing yourself out of a lens of there's something so flawed within
I'm
me.
not good enough. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not good enough. Exactly. I am not good enough. So that takes us to over-identification and mindfulness. So again, to remind us all, mindfulness practice is the ability to pay attention in the present moment on purpose without judgment. So for example, I'll just give something really quick. Let's say, Jill, you don't like the color brown, or maybe you don't like leather, but I ask you, what is this? And you might say it's a cushion, right? A part of this. And I might ask you to describe some other qualities about it. I might have you feel it and
smooth, cold, leather's cold.
Yeah, exactly. It's hot on this side because it's getting really, really hot. But that's okay. I'm fine. I'm chilling. So if I ask you to describe it, you could do that in, a light, neutral, playful way. If I start to ask you, well, what do you think about this? You might say, Katie, I hate leather. I don't want to see it. I hate the color brown. All of a sudden the reactivity is arising, right? And all of a sudden we're not being mindful anymore. We're not just being non-judgmental observers of the truth.
Cushion, yeah.
It's a cushion, right? So we give judgments to everything. And not only do we give those judgments to things, including to ourselves in this case, we also do something called over-identify. What that means really is that we get caught up in our emotion or thoughts about something. So instead of being able to take a step back, Jill, and say, you know what, maybe I shouldn't get so mad at a cushion. It's just a cushion, right? It's okay that I don't like leather. Maybe Katie does, so she has it here. Instead of taking that step back, which would be mindful practice, we over-identify. So we really get worked up about stuff, including if we say, I'm unworthy, we make it a generalization about our entire identity, which leaves very little room for evidence that we are, in fact, very much worthy, even by virtue of being alive and existing on this planet. Okay, so that is over-identification versus mindfulness. So when in doubt, when you're getting really caught up in something, you're getting caught up in anxiety, you're getting caught up in getting pissed at the traffic. The goal is—
That's a big one, yeah.
Right? We all get a little ragey at times, I think, teach their own. I grew up driving in New Jersey, so, love my fellow New Jerseyans, but could use a little extra driving lessons sometimes. I say that with a lot of love. So when you're getting over-identified, you're in the car, you're like, oh, right? You're like grabbing the wheel. The reality is you can't change anything about that situation. If you're stuck in bumper to bumper LA traffic, that's it. You're sitting there. So if you can get yourself to bring that nervous system down, maybe with some nice little self-soothing touch, or even a little self-kindness that says, man, it really does suck that you're in traffic every day because you live in LA and that's just the way it is. Now we're coming down, right? We could take a step back. We're like, okay, I'm in this car, I'm in the traffic. Traffic happens every day. And when it moves, it's going to move. Now that shift is really hard. I've worked on it for years and years and years, so I don't pretend it's easy, but that's a really good example of being over-identified, right? Versus—
That's exactly it. Yeah. And every part of your body, the stress in your hands, your body, your mind, your teeth grinding.
Exactly. It becomes all of you.
It consumes you. Yeah.
Exactly. So that consumption is over-identification. And the counter to that is mindfulness.
Okay.
And then my favorite Although this one, interestingly, I find is really hard for people, at least when they're first starting out, is common humanity versus isolation. So when we live in shame, we isolate. So shame, and I think we both know Brene Brown. I'm sure she's incredible. I hear my pup barking outside. So that's my mom ears going like this.
Good.
And if, actually in the moment, I could show you how that practice is. So I watched, this is mindfulness in action, right? I watched my mind get a little distracted. Then I watched my mind throw me a thought that said, oh, shoot, you're live on air. You're getting distracted. Oh my gosh, like people are going to think that maybe you're not smart in what you do or you can't focus.
Got it.
This is all in a span of 2 seconds.
Uh-huh.
And I brought my nervous system down. I relaxed. I noticed my stomach was tightening. It's mindfulness. I used more self-kindness. And I said, well, people get distracted. This isn't what I do on a regular basis, maybe one day, but it's not. So that's self-kindness in action, right? I'm not going to over-identify with the imposter syndrome that just like flew in there the moment I got distracted, right? And then that's it. And you get to show people and model it that it's okay to be a professional and a practitioner.
And you do have to keep those ears open to make sure the dog is not barking
Exactly.
abnormally because then something's
We wear
wrong.
lots of hats, Jill. I know we wear lots of hats. So common humanity versus isolation. Brene Brown talks about shame as, really where we believe that there's something so inherently flawed about us that we will somehow not continue to belong in a group. And so and belong in whatever group we want to belong in, whether it's the larger society at hand or a particular friendship group, or even with one or two people like our parents or someone else. So in that case, what we want to do is to draw our awareness to the larger picture, which is that we are, in fact, like it or not, despite all of our differences, even with our differences, we are a part of a common humanity. And being a part of a common humanity means we all suffer. We all have a shit ton of flaws. We will continue to have flaws. We all go through shit. We all get scared of stuff. And we all experience all this same stuff. And that means that if we can really, like, if you closed your eyes and you imagined, for example, a really vulnerable moment where you feel embarrassed or scared, or you think people are judging you, and you actually picture yourself standing there holding hands with a bunch of people, or even just standing next to a bunch of people. Imagine this line just extends and extends and extends, and you just actually drop into that. You just let yourself picture that. So you're standing in a big group, and the person to your left has a story, to your right has a story. Everyone is worried about being judged by everybody else. All of a sudden, you're not so alone anymore. And that's really the big picture here, is that we feel alone with our self-talk. We create aloneness by not using self-compassion, by holding ourselves to some ridiculous standards, by fearing being judged by others. But when you really, really, really think about it, we all struggle with the same shit. How could we possibly be alone in it when everyone else around us is experiencing the same thing? And
like COVID, for example, we all went through this pandemic together.
Yes.
That's the one thing that made you feel better, knowing we weren't alone.
And that has been a huge actually conversation and research, and actually one of the benefits and the positive things that has come out of the pandemic is really that we really did feel that sense of togetherness. Like it or not, we were forced into it. And turns out it's some pretty powerful stuff.
Wow. Amazing, amazing. We still have 5 minutes left. Want to make sure we're getting to everything. Do you want to talk about the yin and yang? Do you want to do self-compassion language?
Oh gosh. Let's see. So let's talk about yin and yang real quick. So this is a cool one. A lot of people, when they first learn about self-compassion, they really think that it is something that is just only of a soft quality, something that just involves like self-soothing. Sometimes people will even say like it's too feminine in a sense, which, I think is absurd. I think it's on the spectrum of feminine to masculine. Any human being can practice this. Humans should be softer to themselves. If that is a feminine quality, maybe because we're, maternal, fine, then let's like bring everybody else in there. Actually, the yin and the yang says that there are components that go inward, the self-soothing, we call it allowing, so letting things kind of be as they are without trying to change them. And then there's actually the more active components of self-compassion. That might mean setting a boundary and saying no. That might mean actually saying, hey girl, listen, you've been wanting to go work out, because when you do work out, you sweat, you feel better, your anxiety is lower, you feel stronger, you feel better about yourself. So listen, come on, let's go do this today. So that's the self-talk. That is self-compassion. And it does acknowledge the fact that you don't want to get out of bed. True. But at the same time, you're actually motivating. It's an outward action. So it's pretty much as simple as that. Anything that you can practice out of caring for yourself, out of wishing the best for yourself, out of wanting to alleviate suffering, whether it's inward, the yin, or outward, the yang, all of it is fair game. And that's it. It's pretty straightforward in that way.
Awesome. Love it. And still have 3 minutes left. So you want to get in what other part? There's a few more. So
oh, that's okay. No, I think we covered a lot. And I think that's a lot for anybody to hold in one time. So I'm happy to just remind folks where they can, check out Growspace. You can go visit hellogrowspace.com. It's currently a little under construction, but still cute. You can email me at Katie, Katie, at hellogrowspace.com. Growspace is one nice little lowercase name, or at least that's the way I'm designing it. And I always like to point people, if you live in New York City or New York State, I work at Union Square Practice. We have an amazing, amazing collection of therapists, psychiatrists, art therapists, sex therapists, sports psychologists, you name it. We've got TMS, we have ketamine treatments, and honestly, I love our practice. So feel free to reach out, Union Square Practice, which is in the Union Square and Flatiron District in NYC. And I'd love for people to check out my book that's coming out that we talked about last week, which is The Shit I Say to Myself. The little I has a little asterisk. You've got to type that in to kind of have it pop up on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and hopefully coming to a lot of small bookstores near you.
Awesome. Congratulations on that again. Thank you for being here, for enlightening us. And are we back together next week?
You sure are. We got 3 more weeks together, girl.
Good. Looking forward to it. Have a great day and a great weekend. Bye-bye.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the MyTuner Radio, online radio box, and Simple Radio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com, or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcast on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house. And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned. This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.